perpetrator of misinformation during the pandemic has been the United States government. Now we have the definitive Cochrane review. What do you do with that review? Cochrane is the most authoritative evidence body in all of medicine and has been for decades. Do you just ignore it, not talk about it? Which is unforgivable, and that is the weaponization of medical research itself.
Hello, folks. How are you? Hope you've had a bloody good weekend, and I hope it's been warmer for you than it has been for me. Bloody freezing by Queensland, at least southeast Queensland terms. And tonight apparently is going to be colder yet again. I'm not complaining. I do have warm clothes I can put on. I just moved to Queensland for a bloody reason. Cold wasn't one of them, I can tell you. I hope you've had an interesting weekend. There's been so much going on since we did our QSI chat last Monday night, Vince and I. And many people might have thought that we were giving up on the whole thing, called it a scam, and were moving away. Vince certainly called it a scam. On face value, it certainly can look that way. But I've had a lot of thoughts about this whole thing since that night. And I wound up meeting Quantum Brownie, as you know, one day last week. We discussed a few things, and I threw a question at him then. I threw that same question at Vince. I've thrown that same question at a number of other people who would normally be very much opposed or pushing the idea that QSI is a scam. And that simple question is this: show me a victim. I cannot find a victim. I haven't stopped looking for a victim. There have been a couple of people who've thrown their hands up to say, I'm a victim. But upon further investigation, it wasn't anything that QSI had done that had them lose their funds. So I'm still searching for a victim. For there to be a scam, there has to be a victim. Somebody has to have taken the advice, followed the advice to the letter, and lost money. Now, the losing part of the money is where the questions are being asked. Is money being actually lost? Are you actually losing anything? As Vince explained, if you buy into some of these assets, they go down to zero. They're worth nothing. So essentially, yes, I guess money has been taken. But if you read the QSI notes, it says hold these assets for 3 to 5 years. Wait for them to mature. Now, okay, it's got zero in it at the moment and zero backing it. That is Vince's point, that, you know, there is nothing behind it. Now, you'll recall during our QSI lessons that Jim, the cranker, has come up on a number of occasions, and so too has Jane, and mentioned ascendancy. Mentioned, I don't know if they mentioned it by name, but it is essentially having a bit of faith in the system. And people are saying, oh, God, yes, have faith in this, have faith in that. Ponzi scheme this, Ponzi scheme that. Please, anybody out there, anybody watching this, please tell me how you identify a Ponzi scheme before it collapses. Okay, things can look like a Ponzi scheme, and plenty of things do, but they don't collapse. The ones that collapse are identified as Ponzi schemes. They usually get investigated by the authorities. QSI has had a number, I think 2 or possibly more complaints registered against them in Australia. Police have investigated. They have found nothing, no fraudulent activity, nothing that they could lay a charge against. So where are these claims of scam coming from? Where are the victims? I keep asking, where are the victims? Now, you could call yourself a victim if you were getting the QSI tips on which asset to buy, bearing in mind that if you do the QSI education, I haven't, but I know how it works. If you do the QSI education, you will be guided to the fact that you are going to send your XLM to a buying group, a group of QSI people who are all chumming together to have a larger amount of money able to be used in the purchase of any asset. There are certain bonuses that are attained when you buy X amount of those assets, for instance, and those bonuses are returned to QSI, as I understand it. So, once again, can't see the fraud in that yet, can't see the scam in that yet. Now, if you buy the asset and it tanks and goes to zero, you still haven't lost anything because you haven't sold the asset. And let's be honest, if you haven't sold the asset, it's probably because you can't. Who's going to buy an asset that's worthless? But that goes back then to that small portion on the QSI website that says, hold your assets for 3 to 5 years. This is where the faith bit might come in. If you believe, as many of us do, that there is a financial reset on the way, and I spoke to Quantum Brownie today for about an hour, he agrees 100% that there is, he believes 100% that there is some kind of quantum financial reset, revaluation coming. 100%. He agrees with QSI on that 100%. When I asked him to name a victim from his experiences and obviously his dealings with the collective, he couldn't. When we delved deeper into finding what a victim was, and defining that victim under, any kind of lawful or legal sense, there isn't a victim. He told me himself he'd lost $600,000. And I said, did you lose that to QSI? Did you follow their advice to the letter and invest and had that money taken from you? I don't know if it was in one hit or over a long period of time in multiple investments. I don't know. It's beside the point. The question is, and he couldn't answer or didn't answer, was did you follow the QSI advice to the letter? If the answer to that is no, and let's say, for instance, and I'm not saying that this is Quantum Brownie's case, but if it is your case or a case of someone who believes there has been a scam because you've purchased these shares and they've gone to nothing, then I would ask this question. Did you follow the exact outline that QSI provided in the purchase of these shares? Or did you get the asset tip, if you like, out of one of the many QSI chat rooms on Telegram that you can get into and decide to go out by yourself and purchase the asset in your own private portfolio, thinking that it was going to go through the roof because QSI said it will go through the roof? What they didn't tell you is when. They've told you to hang on to your asset for 3 to 5 years. They haven't stipulated a date when it will go through the roof. But they do say in just about everything else that with the revaluation of the financial system, the quantum financial reset, that money will be flushed into these assets. Liquidity will be flushed into these assets after the reset, making them highly valuable. Now, I would argue, pardon me, that if that doesn't happen after any quantum or financial reset, then you might have an argument. Pardon me again. Then you might have an argument that you've been scammed somehow. You've held on to your asset as outlined by QSI for 3 to 5 years. And in that 3 to 5 years, pardon me, the quantum financial reset happens and you do not realize a profit from the asset you've held under QSI's direction. Then you might have a case to ask some questions about it, but you need to follow advice to the letter. And the letter that a lot of people, I believe, are missing in this whole thing is they are taking the QSI tip and going off and purchasing whatever asset QSI are talking about, and they're buying it in their personal portfolio. That isn't how the QSI thing works. QSI is a group buy. So now let's try and do like for like. All right. Let's compare the stock exchange with QSI and the quantum financial market. If you and I have $1,000 each, and you decide, based on some information that you've heard, and you and I have heard the information from the same source, right? But you've heard that there is a good stock to invest in, trying to get a group of people together to buy $1 million or $10 million worth of that stock. I'm a broker, or my broker calls me and says, listen, I know you're good for these sorts of things. It's a bit of a speculative investment, but, chuck in 250K and I've got 10 others who are going to do it, and we'll see what we can make out of this. Okay, so you're going in as part of a buying group to get a better access or better number of shares to gain a higher say in whatever goes on, or however that works, right? Now, if you swing that around and look at it from the QSI system, they are asking you to do pretty much exactly the same thing. They are the broker. The difference being, I can't see that they're charging you anything for it. The broker is. The broker is going to charge you fees. He's going to charge you for picking up the phone and inviting you into his operation. QSI doesn't charge you fees to join. There is no cost for the education. As near as I can tell, there is no cost at all to get educated on how the QSI system works, and other than putting in whatever XLM you have, there is no cost to be involved in any asset they are pushing forward. I have not had anybody come out of QSI and tell me they are a victim. So if you feel you are a victim, please contact me. But be assured, we need to have a victim before there can be a scam. So all these groups, and speaking with Quantum Brownie today and running a number of these scenarios past him, he agreed with me. 100% agreed with me. So much so that he's agreed to step back from this whole QSI business because, well, maybe not entirely because of what I said, but I did open up some interesting lines of inquiry for him that he hadn't hitherto processed. Now, that's great. If he goes away and has a look and comes back and says, oh, but there is this, or here is an issue, here's how people have been robbed, fine, let's look at it on the evidence that's available. On the evidence that I currently have available to me, I cannot find a victim. Therefore, very difficult to label QSI a scam. I have heard that Emily and maybe Nick Ragone are going to come on Voice of Freedom and discuss this with me. Apparently there is a comment in one of the channels from one of them indicating that's the case. So I'm open to that. I'm very open to having this discussion. And I want to ask a couple of questions. But at this point in time, we get to the faith-based argument, where I've come to today, and I've spent pretty much the whole friggin' day on the phone to different people today, some for half an hour, some for a number of hours, going through all this, and I'm asking people to find fault in what I'm saying. I'm asking you to find fault in what I'm saying, because I don't claim to have all the answers, but I want to know where the victim is, because I'll go and fight for a victim. But at the moment, any victim that pokes their head up has taken the QSI tip and bought it outside of the QSI environment. Now, that is buying a share rather than sending money to a group within QSI that then purchases large volumes of the asset. So, once again, those people who do purchase in that system get a return on their investment, and through an agreed circumstance, nobody is going to get richer than anybody else based on the size of their investment. If you choose, you can invest 300 XLM in a thing that will only return you 30. If you choose to do that, you are doing it for altruistic purposes, and it is your choice. You do that so that you can help raise the overall wealth of the group. Not because you're expecting any great huge return on it, although you will have tokens in that asset, and should the liquidity be flushed into it, as Emily says, as many others are saying, not just Emily, there are a lot of people talking about liquidity being flushed into this system. Have you heard of something called Protocol 20? Remember when we talked about the new ISO 20222 compliancy rules? Well, there is something else involved with all of that, called Protocol 20. That is the flushing in of the liquidity into the system. And it hasn't happened yet. I think it's, if there is going to be a financial reset, system reset, then I'm pretty confident that that will have a lot to do with it, that Protocol 20. So Vince and a couple of others I've got looking into Protocol 20 at the moment and seeing what we can, find out more about it. But Emily knows a great deal about Protocol 20, and if she comes on the show, hopefully one day this week, it probably won't be a live show. I'll need to work to probably their time schedule, so it could be something that's recorded at 3 o'clock in the morning. Just be aware. Although if you want to, I'll do it live. But we will talk about these sorts of protocols, 19 and 20, that are integral in the faith argument, I'm going to call it. And there are many people who have no faith in any kind of financial reset, but there are many of you who do. And there are many more who have the hope that it's going to happen and are waiting to be convinced of its, reliability or its truth. So I guess we'll all wait with bated breath, but God knows there's some interesting things happening in the world that do support a big change coming. So let's go through a couple of those things. What happened today? Koshy quit on Sunrise. Bloody hell. There have been a few calls for that in the past, but why all of a sudden now? Oh, yes, that's right. He wants to go off and do other things. He wants to spend more time with the family. Yes, I can understand that. Whole heap of other excuses. Get him out of the public eye and be gone. 2 weeks. Well, that's good. Not a long send-off, but for the next 2 weeks, we'll be reminiscing about how much Koshy was loved on Sunrise. A week later, when Dr. Chris Brown, I think, will be the replacement for Koshy, just between you, me, and the gatepost. And that'll really piss off Matt Shervington because he's been working his ass off for that for years. However, television being what it is, fickle bitch, I reckon it'll be Dr. Chris Brown. Channel 7 have paid a fortune for him and don't have a platform for him at the moment. So that seems like the ideal platform to open up for a bloke like Dr. Chris Brown on the Sunrise Show. Be ready for that one. Koshy quits. A couple of hours later, West Australian Premier McGowan quits, effective in a week. He's not just quitting the premiership, he's quitting politics. He's getting out of his seat of Rockingham, and he's going to go and spend some quality time with the family because, let's face it, he's exhausted. It is exhausting putting in rules that suffocate, restrict, and control your population. I understand that can be exhausting. It might be draining on your conscience at some stage if you, in fact, had one. We're not completely sure about that. The media, the mainstream media, are touting him as the most popular premier in Australia. I thought Dan Andrews was that, judging by the voting results. But yes. So, McGowan gone. All we need to see is Dan Andrews arrested publicly, potentially some stuff in New South Wales, and a whole heap of shit in Queensland. A whole heap of bastardry has gone on here historically for years. Speaking of which, I owe the guys from Rockhampton, Desi and Desi, a bit of an apology. I've meant to call them basically every day last week and have been run off my feet. I will get them back on the show. We'll try and arrange it for one day this week, but it will be at their discretion whether they've got the time or whatever. I don't know their work commitments, so I will try and sort that out this week. Another interesting thing that happened today, which you might think is completely unrelated to the world, but PricewaterhouseCoopers have been called out in what is probably going to be one of the Australian, if not the global financial world's greatest scandals. This is predominantly tied up with the fact that PricewaterhouseCoopers have been involved with the government. And the government wanted to try and set up some legislation that prevented big companies from not paying tax in Australia, prevented them from setting up, entities offshore that essentially made them tax havens and they didn't have to pay tax. And they got PricewaterhouseCoopers in to help them establish the framework for all of that. Now, as part of it, as I understand the newspaper reports, PricewaterhouseCoopers had to sign at least 3 non-disclosure agreements, and one person in particular who led the team had to sign those agreements, and I guess everybody who worked on that team would be obliged to as well. Turns out they can't keep a secret, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Turns out it's alleged that they have been helping some of their clients with that insider knowledge set up other ways to maybe minimize their tax obligation. Interesting. PricewaterhouseCoopers, probably one of the big 4, if not the biggest, then certainly right up there with Deloitte and others in the Australian accounting area. Interesting. They're saying that this scandal isn't over yet. It's going to go broader and bigger. 9 company directors from PricewaterhouseCoopers were stood down today on leave, compulsory leave. So whatever's going on is reasonably serious, I want to say. Reasonably serious. There is also some other interesting truths that are coming out in the world. I saw a great one today from a gentleman who was brought out to Australia only a matter of a few months ago. Dr. McCulloch came out with Clive Pharma on a tour around Australia. Here's what the good doctor had to say recently.
Who was in charge of commerce operations in the White House, called me early in the pandemic because the United States government had secured a strategic stockpile of hydroxychloroquine. And he was very anxious to get this distributed out to Americans. And people within the White House, including Rick Bright, were actively blocking his ability to do that. Rick Bright subsequently has joined the Vaccine Consortium Rockefeller Foundation. To give you an idea, Clive Palmer, a former member of parliament in Australia, secured an entire stockpile of hydroxychloroquine for the entire country of Australia. The Australian government seized it and destroyed the stockpile. So what happened worldwide was a systematic suppression of early treatment in order to, I believe, front this vaccine agenda. If hydroxychloroquine did not work, these governments and these people wouldn't care, right? Because if it was completely inert and it didn't work, they wouldn't care. They actually took illegal actions to prevent people from receiving hydroxychloroquine, and similar things happen with ivermectin.
Straight from the horse's mouth. How many people poo-pooed the idea that Clive had gone out and secured enough hydroxychloroquine to give everyone in Australia coverage? How many people have thanked Clive for even attempting to do such a thing and not accuse him of having other purposes or reasons for doing it? The fact of the matter is he put his hand in his own pocket, regardless of how many millions he got him or where he got them from. And the Australian government blocked that. Why would they block that? Why would they stop that? We know now, in hindsight, that the truth is out, that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin were the solution to the COVID pandemic. We know that, but deliberately blocked by government because of deals with Big Pharma, deals that involve them buying many, 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 many times the amount of doses required to vaccinate Australia. I think we've got enough. We've bought and paid for enough doses, which are now being destroyed, I believe. We've bought enough doses to be vaccinated countrywide 5 times. Every man, woman, and child 5 times inoculated. That's what we've paid for, even though they haven't arrived here yet or been even made yet. We've committed that that's what we will buy over the coming years from the moment they signed that document with Big Pharma. So that's going to be a bit of a problem, I think, for us all going forward. What else have I got stuck away in here that I wanted to show you tonight? Oh, right. You remember this girl?
I put a microchip in my arm and it's the best thing ever. This chip is a powerhouse. It's got everything I need. A credit card, my ID, my medical info, and even my keys. And when it's time for groceries, you just tap your wrist and bam! Transaction done. It's like magic. In a medical emergency, it can save my life. Experts can easily identify me and my medical history. I feel like a sci-fi character and I'm loving it. This amazing chip is totally free. That's right, no more digging into your pockets. And the best part, the surgery is quick. They'll give you a cookie afterwards.
Give you a cookie afterwards. Remember her? She's got a new message.
Government has frozen my bank account and it can freeze yours too. You have to listen to my story quick and fast because time is running out. A few days ago, I made a post on social media about a danger of having a chip implanted in my arm. I thought I was exercising my right to free speech. This morning, I woke up only to find that the video I posted was gone, and it was just the beginning of the nightmare. As I was trying to pay for my coffee, the microchip in my arm stopped working. I couldn't even pay for anything. And when I got back to my apartment, it locked me out too. Everything was in there, including my cat Misty. This is why I posted this video as a warning and a plea for help.
Look, I don't care if it's a setup or not. She raises a very, very good point and a great example of how our transhumanist agenda, or the transhumanist agenda, is being forced onto all of us. She brings that point home very, very well, I thought. So kudos to whoever came up with that little campaign. I don't believe for a second that it's actually real, but it does show you exactly what the reality of the system would be if that's the case. Speaking of realities, we've had a whole heap of reality hidden from us. I've mentioned it a few times previously. There you go. So a whole heap of designs and things there that, well, were in existence at some point. Some of them at any rate. Some of them I think were just simply designs. But some of them were for real, particularly those trains on overhead gantries. All of that was real. Some of those snowmobiles, those snow vehicles with the big bally wheels, were real. And of course, there is all the Tartarian type statue imagery, doors, buildings, all that kind of stuff. There is a lot we don't know, a lot, and nobody knows it all. I suspect there are only a few people who know bits. Maybe we all have a bit. Maybe we all have a little piece of the key inside us. And with the right conditions, the right mindset, this will come out of us. I keep saying, folks, this is about us becoming better people. It's about raising humanity beyond our own personal desires, wants, and desires, and looking broader at humanity. That doesn't mean you have to lose so humanity can win. At the moment, I believe humanity stands to lose so the corporation can win. And if you feel that way, then, we're probably reading the same book. We may not be on the same page, and there are a lot of people who've inserted a lot of erroneous pages in the book. Sometimes we get to it and we look at that and, we find an infiltrated page. Maybe that's why we should look at these things, an infiltrated page. And you've got to go and have a look at those people and look at the motivations behind what they are doing. I've had a couple of conversations today with players that are very motivated to see QSI torn down. I don't go into bat for QSI. I don't push their arguments for them. I simply raise my own questions and argue my own point. And that has to begin with, show me a victim. If we are going to label something a scam, show me a victim. What I can tell you QSI will show is not a victim, but they will show me the humanitarian projects that they're putting together and are working on in the background. If there are indeed copious billions amounts of funds somewhere in the system, could it not be possible that these funds are earmarked for these humanitarian projects going forward with the group's approval? If not, show me how or why not, because I'm sure that they can show me how that is the case. We need to show, if you claim there is a victim or there is a scam, there is a crime being committed, show me the victim, show me how it's being done. Because I can't find it. And I am stuck like an old record. Some of you might need to look that up. But I am stuck on the fact that no one, and I have had hundreds of hate-filled emails about me wanting to do or talk to QSI for any reason about anything, but not in any of those, I have sent a number of those emails replies in the last 48 hours, and I haven't received one in reply to the questions I ask. Now, I did ask 3 questions, but the only one that really counts is the first one. Show me a victim. Prove to me you are the victim, or prove to me the victim is a victim. And then we can take up that battle. No one, not one singular person, has come back with evidence of a victim. They've come back with stories about how they might have lost money or how they heard of somebody lost money. There's a great thing. In fact, I can probably bring this up somewhere here. Let me flick this around. Oh, no, I don't think that's it. Let me go back to the other one. Yeah, this one. Let me share this screen with you. Right. Now, this is on a website called Logically, I think it is. Exclusive crypto trading scheme lost investors millions. Now, I've read all this cover to cover, page to page. The only real loss that is described is a trader who invested $100,000 and ran into a lot of business problems, didn't have the cash to get out of them, committed suicide. I would suggest to you that there is no difference in what happened with that person than what happens with a speculative trader on the stock market. That person, if they followed a whiplash tip but didn't go through a group buy, for instance, just went out and invested how much money in it, and then tried to sell that stock because it wasn't working and found it was worth nothing, then you're not following the QSI advice. That would be stick around for 5 years or thereabouts. I think I'm sharing the wrong tab with you. That's the one I want to share with you. So yeah, this tablet, this page, you can go and check out yourself, logically.ai. Now, I've read the story. It's all full of unnamed quotes. The family don't want the name of the person who lost $100,000 mentioned because they're embarrassed, I guess, because he lost $100,000 on what is currently they're terming a scam. Would the family, let's put it into a different perspective. If the person had gone and invested $100,000 at the local pokey club and lost it, would the family be screaming scam? Well, they might, but it's not going to work as a legal argument, nor will this. Because unless you follow to the letter what QSI advise you to do, and that is basically buy through the group fund, don't sell the assets for 3 to 5 years, then if you don't follow those, you're breaking essentially the directions on how this is going to work. If you don't buy into the group, if you decide to take that asset knowledge and buy it outside in your own portfolio, and it falls flat because you were thinking it was going to go up to whatever it was immediately and make a killing, this is greed. Okay, this is greed in you. Whether or not you want to admit it or not is a completely different matter. But you thought you could go outside of whatever system was being put together and make a bit more on the side without having to share any of it with the group. Maybe that was the mindset, maybe not. But that's what it looks like to me, the outsider. It looks like people have seen the asset, think, oh yes, I'll go and buy that, but I'm not going to buy in the group. I'm going to go outside and buy it outside the group. Then conveniently forget that part of the group's advice is hold on to the asset for 3 to 5 years. Now, if you've held onto an asset for 6 years now and it's still worth nothing and they'd said hang on to it for 3 to 5, well, okay, you might have an argument, but caveat emptor, buyer beware. You must do your own research. You must do your own investigation. Now, for dumb shits like me, the QSI model is perfect because I simply follow the advice, do what they say, and do nothing else. Nothing else. That works for me because I don't understand it. Sometimes I win, but I haven't had a loss yet. Not that I can quantify at any rate. But if I was to take their tip outside the system, as Vince did the other day, he discovered that it doesn't work outside the system quite as well. Yes, you can buy it at a certain price, but then the price drops, goes down to zero. Once again, hang on to the asset for 3 to 5 years. And this is where the faith-based argument comes back into it again. If you believe there is a quantum financial reset coming, if you realize or believe there will be a revaluation of currency, then you've got nothing to worry about because this is all in line with that. If you are struggling with the concept of those two things, a global financial reset and a revaluation of currency, then yes, I can understand why you would have problems with the QSI model. But that just means you haven't investigated enough to satisfy your own questions. And that has been the case with somebody today. I've been able to point them directly, as it turned out, to some advice that's given on the QSI website and pages directly about asset management that they hadn't learned before. And when they did read it, it changed their entire outlook on what issue they thought they were facing. They realized they weren't facing an issue. So sometimes, and I believe in this case, particularly with QSI, there is a lot of bitterness, there is a lot of ego, and there is a lot of jealousy in the crypto world, particularly in the creators of tokens. Now, Vince is going to come on and talk to us again this week at some stage. He's going to tell us how Stellar, I think it is, have only 79, or it might be Lobster. No, Stellar. Only have 79 verified assets of the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, however many there are on the network. They've only got 79 that are verified. Now, that should ring alarm bells with people, I would have thought. It does with me, but it rings an alarm bell with me because I don't really understand what that means. Does that mean that everything else that's on their register is a fake, is a scam? And if so, why do they allow it to be there? So it raises a whole heap of interesting questions. And I hope you'll hang around long enough for me to try and figure out the answers, and we can figure them out together. If you've got a few of them for me, by all means, please send them to me, carl@vofhq.com. Exactly the right way to do it. Let me have a bit of a look at some of the comments that have been popped up here. Dave's got one. Yeah, okay, on the Clive news. Yeah, I agree. Clive is probably been given a pretty bum rep over many things in that regard. But if he did put his hand into his pocket, and I have no reason to believe he didn't, I've heard the story from multiple different sources. There were 39 million doses, I believe, 39 million doses of hydroxychloroquine that Clive paid for and had delivered to Australia at his own cost. And at the border, it was intercepted by Scott Morrison's government and it was destroyed. And I believe that there was some kind of legal gag placed over him from talking about it. So that's been a bit of an issue. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, I think a few of us might feel the same way. Adam, you've got a great idea. Yeah, I've got to admit, I feel a bit the same way. I have had a head cold, but that's all it was. Just a head cold. So I'm just scrolling down to see if there's a few more here. There's some interesting comments in there tonight. Yeah, Dave, you're right. Clive will answer for those things. And if you're referring to Townsville and his nickel mining interests up there, before you jump up and down too wildly about that, you might want to look into what the Townsville government, local council, did for Clive and what Clive did for the local council, which they then reneged on. Interesting. Or it's alleged, at any rate. There's a lot of finagling goes on in the Townsville local council area. And a lot of it smells very, very bad. That's why on my place in Townsville, with a group of, well, motivated locals will make a change. They will put people in power in local government who are working for we the people, who are going to make decisions for all of us. I used an example today about how councils are out of touch. There is a council I'm aware of who's putting up a $4 million welcome sign at the front of their town. There might be two signs for all I know, one at each end. However, they're spending $4 million on it. The town doesn't want a welcome sign. The residents of the town are dead set. Sure, they don't need a welcome sign. What they do need is some facilities for kids, including a skate park, which has been touted now for some time. Now, a skate park costs less than $1 million to build. They have local contractors in town who are willing, parents who are willing to go and, remember the old working bee style? Remember working bees? Can't do working bees anymore. Apex, Lions. Where's your public liability insurance? What happens if one of your volunteers falls down the hole he digs and scones himself? Jams a pitchfork through his foot or the foot of somebody else. No working bees anymore. I managed to cut out community involvement like that. It used to be something every weekend when I was a kid that my dad would drag us off to, and we'd go and help dig a hole, put up a child's playground, spread some dirt somewhere for somebody. We would do something in the community. But that doesn't happen anymore, and that's by design. That's why we need to change that. We need to rebuild our communities. We need to look after each other. We need to care, not to a point. We need to care about others, but not to a point of the detriment of our own selves and families, obviously. But once we've sorted out ourselves and our families and we know they're okay, then instead of having the greedy option, looking for more for us, we need to start looking at how we can help those who aren't at our level yet, who haven't reached our financial status level, who haven't reached the level of being able to cook for themselves yet, much less afford the produce to do the cooking. We have to raise our vibration, our level of humanity. And that's what I do believe is going on here. And I think from what I've gleaned out of the chats that I've had with QSI and others, that this is a general theme for us all. We have to start thinking more about each other. Oh, where have we heard this before? Think more about each other than we do about ourselves. And from that, we will all grow and benefit. I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. And that's why I do what I do, to bring people together. When I turn up at some place that I haven't been before, I am invariably met by 1 to 5 people at these events, even more at the bigger ones, that say, thank God you came to town because I didn't know all these people existed. That's the thing. We are hidden in plain sight all over the place. But over the last 3 years, they've browbeaten us, threatened us, cajoled us, coerced us into not talking about it or being nervous about talking about it because we get shouted down or abused by, people who don't believe as we might, and apparently feel the urge to fight you because you have a different opinion than they do. I don't know what they feel is so threatening about somebody having a different opinion to them, but that does seem to be the problem. But you're good people. We are good people. We aren't put off that easily. We certainly won't be threatened, and we will not back down if it comes to push and shove. But it will not come to push and shove if we do this right. And that just means looking after your fellow man. There is a book about it. Might be worth reading. Just saying. Sorry, I scanned over. Yeah, the Microchip Girl is a great campaign, a beautiful wake-up campaign. I think it works out very well. Kindness is how they get you to trust them. Yeah, and during that kindness, they'll give you a bit of kindness and take away a little bit of your freedom. Time, it's like boiling a frog. How do you cook a frog? Very, very slowly. And that's all they're doing it. Yeah, Dave, you're on the money tonight, brother. Once we can live by true principles and morals, then we have a chance to move forward. I agree. Once we stop the greed, the self-greed, putting ourselves ahead of everything else, always. It's okay to put yourselves, up front and personal when you need to, look after your family, keep a roof over your head, get food, all that sort of stuff. It's okay to think of yourself first. But once you have satisfied those requirements, don't just sit back and do nothing, or don't just sit and wonder about how you can take more off others to build your own fiefdom, to build your own pile. Think about how you can help others get to your level. I think that's where ascension is. We've got to try and bring more people up in a more loving, moral way. I think there's a book about that. Just saying. Mankind or Humanity. One is a fiction. Yeah. Well, I know which one that is. And I'm pretty confident you two too. Okay, Jacqueline, what's going on here? Never understood the situation. There are many so-called truthers telling us to be more humanitarian and do things for others. Please, every day for no money. Well, I guess at the moment, yes, there is a chance that for no money, we all go off and do things. And we do all go off and do things for no money. To give you an example, in the commercial world, if I was to turn up with the amount of equipment that I bring to a show, with the Galactic Larrikins in tow, you would expect to pay $15,000 to $25,000 for the night. That's the commercial reality of the equipment that I have. You would expect to pay $15,000 to $25,000 per broadcast. Now, clearly, I'm not charging anybody to bring that sort of equipment to your place and show the world about your town or hear your ideas or anything like that. Okay, I don't charge to go anywhere. I do ask for donations because I can't do it without them. It's that simple. I don't have a job. I've done I've done one voiceover in the last 6 months. And that was only the other day. And that's only because I like the guy who asked me to do it. and he paid a reasonable price for it. So outside of that, that reasonable price will cover my rent for 1 week. So, yip-yah, I'm really pleased that I can do that. But outside of that, I need to get to Sydney. We're going to do an event down there with Michelle Pharma at the Katoomba, my place. And, of course, we're going north to go and give the voices of North Queensland a place to be heard. Because there are so many of us up in the far north of Queensland. But because it is so spread out, it is a sparse place. You don't know that there are 1, 2, 10 or 100 people, like-minded thinkers like you, in your area or around you. But when we come to town, we put on a show, a bit of a barbecue, come and see the show, come and say hi, and all of a sudden it becomes an event because we're all like-minded. We all are thinking, well, I like to think we're all thinking human beings. We're all moving towards a better deal for us all, not a better deal for us individually. And once again, my place is an ideal place to start watching for people who are into getting something personally out of it. And I mean power, control, rather than personal development. Personal development is something we should always be striving to get in any organization we're part of. If we are not getting any personal development out of it, odds are we're not providing much of a service to the rest of the people that the job is meant to be in aid of. If you're doing it just to make you feel good, well, great. But if what you're doing makes others feel good too, even better. And sometimes you need a helping hand to get out on the road and do it. So that's why we ask you to donate here at the Voice of Freedom. Not for any other reason, no ulterior motive, no nothing. I can sit here and do a show by myself every night of the week. It doesn't matter to me. What matters in the process is that we bring community together. We let you meet each other. And at the moment, nobody else is doing that. So if you want to meet friends, like-minded people in your area, because you think you're there by yourself, you're not. Email me, carl@vofhq.com. Encourage your friends to do the same. We will put you on the list of places to visit. And if you can spare a couple of bucks to donate to get us in that general direction on our way there, then we will. I seriously, folks, work from one event to the next. I can't leave the town I'm at unless I get enough fuel money in the donations that night to get to the next town. That's where I live. That's how we work. So I can't go anywhere until somebody says, hey, well, I'm going to help you get somewhere. I don't use the money for anything else. I don't play the pokies. I'm not a drinker. I think we've established that. Although I do appreciate nice scotch if there is a bottle of it on the bed that I happen to be sleeping in the town that I visit that night. I just can't drink it like I used to. But by and by, this is about getting us together. And if I can be a meeting point for people, that's what I'm happy to be. If I can bring my little show and my little group of guys to your place together, and it doesn't cost them anything. I don't care what it costs me at the end of the day. I've got nothing left, so it doesn't matter. But it's unfair of me to try and ask the Galactic Larrikins to come on the road and help me do these shows if I can't give them something either. They have commitments. They've got things they have to pay. So, you know, I understand. Not everybody can just throw their hands up in the air and get on the road and say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I am lucky in some instances, I guess, that I don't have a mortgage over my head, that I don't have large financial commitments. I refuse the debt trap. So my only biggest issue is cash flow. But I, you know, obviously figuring ways and means around that, doing various jobs where I can, what I can do. I refuse to go on the dole. I think it would be hypocritical in the extreme for me to go on the dole. So I refuse that. Many people have suggested it, but I simply see that as a bit like you donating money to me and me taking it out of the bank and going straight to the poker machine and shoving it down the throat of that. That's how I sort of view the same thing for the, not going to happen. Just not going to happen. If I can't go anywhere, I'll sit in this room and do a show here. It's fine by me. Whether you watch or not, that's up to you. Whether the audience grows or not, that's up to you. Matters not to me whether the audience grows or not. Matters not to me if YouTube, should point that out. YouTube will shut down my channels very shortly. I got another notification today. I think I've got 2 strikes on 2 channels now. Num2K will be taken down, and that is my largest channel. I reckon Num2K will be dead probably within a week, but most probably within a month. So if you are watching this show on anything other than the Rumble channel, the Voice of Freedom Rumble channel, be prepared. It may not be here one day when you go to log back on. Go looking on Rumble for it, or go looking at Project Matilda for it. We're still streaming there, unabated and unimpeded, but YouTube will disappear. Looks like Facebook has kicked me off one of the channels on there. The Wake Up channel's dead there. So they're going back. They've gone back to something that happened on April 18th to give me another red flag today. So all medical misinformation bullshit, because the medical information has been updated. Their community guidelines do not reflect the truth of government positions. But that doesn't stop them from banning you. And while there are 10,700, whatever it is, subscribers on that channel alone, that'll all just disappear. And I can tell you, no great worth comes from that channel, although it is monetized. YouTube do not let me monetize my videos for the most part. They will make them unmonetized, or they will make them limited, meaning limited ads come through. I think last week's YouTube check was $156. So that didn't even cover 1 week's rent. So I am not the YouTuber that's making money out of this game. Okay, just be sure of it. I'm very happy to show you the images if you don't believe me. Rumble, on the other hand, I think is monetized too, and I think I made 52 cents out of that last month, and I've got almost as many subscribers. So I don't know how the model works. Clearly, I'm doing something wrong. But the whole fact of the matter is, I do what I do for you, for me, for my daughter, for your kids, and hopefully for those people who can't do it for themselves. But I can only do it with your support. So if you feel the urge to support me, you can do so by becoming a member for as little as $1.25 a month. And Vince, we have to get our regulations up on the website because we need to get our silver competition up and running for our members sooner rather than later. So that'll be a mission that we'll both go on to this week, I hope, and have that sorted. You can also just donate. There's a donate button on the webpage at vofhq.com. Anything that you can help out with is gratefully received, and you know it will go to just keeping us on the road. Well, I'll be honest, a bit of it might go to pay the rent, but for the most part, it'll go on the road. So any help you can give me would be gratefully received. What else have I got to tell you tonight, folks? J1, yeah. Free speech will be held against you in a court of law. Yes, depending on how you argue it. Maybe that's a show in itself one night. And Des and Des might be the guys to come on and have that. I will talk to their coordinator, Melody, tomorrow, if not tonight. She's rung me 3 times and I haven't been able to answer the calls when she's rung, and I haven't called her back because I've just been flat out. I do apologize. I will get back onto you. It's important that Des and Des get their say. And we get a little bit more fleshed out in what they started explaining last Tuesday night on the Voice of Freedom. So look out for that one day this week. I've also heard that Lemper is back in mobile phone contact range. I hope to hear from him sometime the next day or two. So we will set up another meet with him and catch up on next month's potential Langarama Voice of Freedom tour. I don't know how many people have expressed interest in that, but if you are, go to the langaramajourney.com website and put your name in there. If you want to come along, I think it's 9 days, 8 nights, I want to say. And it is going to some truly sacred land that, white fellas have never been to, but most black fellas have never been to either, and did require the negotiation of a lot of negotiation with a number of tribes. I think it's up to 8 different clans in that area. So I think it would be an amazing adventure to be on, amazing cultural journey, amazing educational learning journey that every Australian should be a part of. And I hope we can get next month's together. And I'll see if I can't get Dave on the phone, and we'll sort out a bit of a chat for him at some stage later in the week. Thanks, George. I appreciate you appreciating me. Great, I really do. Thank you very much. I do love meeting people, and I am humbled by some of the comments that I get from some of the people that I meet. I don't know why you people watch. I don't know why you get from me or how you get from me what you get from me, but I am so glad, particularly in a number of cases, that whatever message I've put out has reached you on a level that in some cases has altered your life. And I only say that because I have 7 letters, handwritten letters from people that essentially start off with, this was going to be the last letter I ever wrote. It was going to be my suicide letter. And then after seeing something that I'd said, they'd changed their mind. After being shown something or being told by a friend, it changed what they were going to do. I've had those letters hand delivered to me at events, and I've cried with the people who've given them to me. I don't know how I have that effect, but I thank God every day I can. And thank you for following me in the hope that I do say something that is able to help you. The stuff that I say helps me. I do this for me. But I do this for me with a bigger view that hopefully there are more me's like you out there. And it seems, at least, there is a small band of us that follows the voice of freedom. And I'm honoured and humbled that you would do so. I'm honoured and humbled that you would support me in this. And if you can, and continue to do so, I can't thank you enough. We will beat the bastards. And I will fight for you every step of the way. I'll try and use logic. I'll always try and use logic. You can be guaranteed I will always use principle and morality. And when I'm wrong, I'll tell you. 100%. I'm not afraid to admit my mistakes. I'm just trying to limit them a bit. Anyway, probably talked enough for tonight. You guys have a fabulous evening. Tomorrow, Vince may well be on. If it's not Vince, it might be the Desers. I don't know what they're doing on Tuesday nights. It could be Lumpa. I don't know. It's a bit of a mashup this week, and I've been told I've got to get Starseed back on too because I haven't had him on for a while. So true. Haven't heard from Bob either. So we'll find out how things are going in maybe the Bob and Starseed world on Friday night, because that's generally where we like to put them. Doesn't offend too many people, and we can keep both of them sober long enough. Hope you have a lovely night, folks. Please, if you are going to be on the roads, you know what to do. Steer clear of the dickheads.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!